Hey guys, what's up? Today we are checking out the new OnePlus Nord 6. Are you ready? Let's check it out. So the OnePlus Nord 6. Now there are a few things about the Nord which are really interesting. To start off, the display is really nice. We've got a 6.8 inch, slightly smaller than 6.8. It's about 6.78 inches diagonal display. And we've got very less bezels, so it looks nice in terms of the overall look and feel. And the display also has a full HD plus resolution. You have 165 Hz of refresh rate. You also do have a PWM dimming of 3160 Hz. And then this goes up to 3600 nits of peak brightness, outdoors, etc. And it is HBM brightness of around 1000. So it's good in terms of all of those things. And then it also has an overclock touch response. So whether you're doing things like gaming or whatever, or even for day-to-day use, the display is really nice and responsive and very bright as well. So that definitely is not going to be an issue. So the phone weighs in at 217 grams and the pre-applied screen protector adds about 3 grams. So you'll find that the weight of the phone is about 220 grams. Now you do have an infrared port on the top, and the USB charging port that supports Super VOOC charging is actually a USB 2.0 port. So if you're planning on using it for data, I would recommend that you do that wirelessly instead of directly. Also, the microphone and the SIM ejection hole is slightly different, but I bet a lot of people will be inserting their pins in the wrong hole. So powering everything is a Qualcomm Snapdragon 8S Gen 4. Now you get two options for RAM, but only one option for storage. So you get 256 either way. So you can pick either 8 gigs of RAM or 12 gigs of RAM. But for storage, you only get 256. So that is a little bit of a letdown, but also okay. It doesn't really matter. 256 is enough. But also the fact that you don't get a microSD expansion on OnePlus devices means that you can't really expand the storage. So that's definitely a problem. What OnePlus has done is that they have a really nice CPU scheduler, and that allows for better performance from the display, because a 165 Hz display usually doesn't perform really well on this. But it works fine on the 8S Gen 4. So we have had no issues with that so far. As far as the user interface is concerned, we have OxygenOS 16. It's not the Oxygen that we used to remember from the good old days, but it is a highly skinned version, very close to ColorOS. You also are running Android 16, and 4 years of Android updates are promised and 6 years of security updates are promised. And updates are actually quite quick and frequent. We've already gone through 2 updates on this phone in our testing as well. The user interface in itself is quite clean and responsive. You have lots of customizations for the layout, the home screen, the lock screen, all of those things as well. Plus you have certain elements that are specific to OnePlus devices. Those continue to be available on the user interface. A user interface also allows you to control a lot of things like the animations. And you also have the ability to set performance capabilities from the game booster, or what they call is the game assistant. And that allows you to sort of customize a lot of things about the device, including the frame rate limitations, the performance limitations, all of those things. Now, this game assistant is available within game as well. So while you're gaming, you can pull this out and adjust the settings. And this is also where you will allow for the battery bypass charging feature to be enabled as well. As far as performance is concerned, this phone is fairly good. Again, for the 35,000 rupee price bracket that this phone has been launched at. And at that price, you're getting a pretty good processor with the Snapdragon 8S Gen 4. And you're getting decent performance from this as well. So in an Antutu result, you will find on screen that it is fairly matched with devices like the Galaxy S25. We ran this on stock settings, no customizations, no hyper performance mode or anything. So we are getting slightly less results than what OnePlus claims, because they run it in ideal settings as well. Now the phone is smooth and the user interface is also smooth, and the display also supports up to 165 Hz. So all of that works really well on this device. I don't see any real issues with the user interface as such. There are a lot of things that you won't use that are pre-installed, some things that you can't get rid of. And plus the animations are now a lot more like, for example, you have the dynamic island animation, which is again a lot closer to what Apple does. Also, your control settings are from the right and your notifications are from the left as far as the pull down is concerned. So all of those things very familiar Also, again, something that Oppo did, then came to OnePlus, and we're seeing it on OnePlus devices as well. So for cameras, we have two cameras on the back here. We have a Sony Litia 600, which is the main camera, 50 megapixel, and then we have an OmniVision 8 megapixel ultra wide camera as well. You can of course see the LED flash. I'm not particularly a big fan of this camera sort of layout. It kind of looks flat, and also the cameras kind of look like those fake cameras you have on those clone phones where it's a dummy camera. It almost looks like that. It doesn't have a lot of character, so it makes the phone look a little cheap because of that. But coming back to the cameras, on the front also we have a 32 megapixel selfie camera, which is also a wide sort of frame camera. If you go into the camera UI, you can see that you still have a 2x sort of lossless zoom, but then of course you have an 0.6x which is the ultra wide, and then here is your standard. So if you see, it shifts the positioning of the cameras a little bit when you jump between modes, and that has always been a problem, and OnePlus has improved it certainly a lot, but it's still not the best. It keeps reframing it according to the camera layout instead of doing it in software. So you can see the biggest jump here. Every time I switch between photo and portrait, it changes the location. But irrespective of that, you also have video, and you can go up to 4K 60 in this. And then also they've upgraded the bypass recording. So if you're recording in 4K 60, you can attach a power bank and then use that to power the phone and not charge the battery. So that way it works longer and it doesn't heat up the battery, and you can get sustained 4K 60 for longer periods of time without heating up the phone. So this is the front camera, and you can see that you still get some options here. I can zoom in and you can see how much sharpening is being added in the preview. It's adding a lot of contrast and sharpening. It doesn't really look nice in the preview, but the image comes out okay, but there's still a lot of processing that is happening. Otherwise, colors look really nice. You also have a portrait mode for the front camera, and it has really good edge detection as well. So here is a sample of that. And then of course for video, this is problematic because you can get 4K, but it's 30 FPS, and you can get 1080, which is also 30 FPS. So even if you decide to keep a 60 FPS timeline and you shoot 4K 60 on the rear camera, you can't shoot 1080p 60 on the front camera as well. So that is, at least they should have given 1080 60, but they haven't done that over here at all. You also have those AI filters and ultra steady mode on also, so you can turn on beautify, retouch, all of that. If you're more prone to doing those kind of things, you can do that as well. And you can see that ultra steady works really nicely. It works only in 1080p, not in 4K as well. You also have some filters here, so you can also add filters live before starting the shoot. So I can record with the filters sort of applied, so you can see what it will look like after you've applied the filter, and it will record it with the filter itself. So the camera does a fairly good job of color. You can see it looks really nice, and the lights have also come on for us, but it looks really nice. It captures the actual color quite nicely, and then you also get a really nice focus even with the main camera, and then you can also sort of do a 2x. So if you want to do macro, this is your only way. There isn't a dedicated macro mode on this, at least we couldn't find it. You do have some settings over here, so you can turn on HDR, interval shooting, all of that as well. So all of that can be done. Light has been turned off for our pleasure again. And then in video, you can see it's fairly stable. And then even in 4K 60 with the main camera, you do get ultra steady shot as well. And this is what the video looks like. And it's fairly smooth. Even with shaky hands like mine, I can get some really nice, decent video on this. So from a battery perspective, we have a 9000 milliamp hour battery, which does translate to real world usage as well. We found that the battery lasts a good 2 days, even with heavy usage. And then you also get an 80 watt SuperVOOC charger inside the box along with the cable. Again, there's still USB A to C cables. I am not a big fan of that, but they want to restrict people from using their chargers, or I don't know what's going on. But it does support fast charging. It will not give you 80 watts or any kind of SuperVOOC charging with non-SuperVOOC adapters. So that's definitely a letdown. Because this has a massive battery, it takes about 70 minutes to fully charge the phone, as long as you're using the SuperVOOC charger. And if you charge it for about 5 minutes, it gives you about 2 hours of video playback. That's what they're claiming. We didn't really test that, but it gives you a quick charge in 5 minutes, which can be worth it for a lot of people, especially if you're just getting out of the office or going to the office and you just want enough battery for on the way. A 5-minute quick charge will allow you to get that. This also does offer reverse charging, so you can charge devices from this using a cable. It offers 27 watt, so if you have an iPhone or whatever, you can charge that from this by simply plugging it into this, and it'll act as a power bank. It is a 9000 milliamp hour battery, so it'll work as a massive power bank for that. Overall, from a battery perspective, you're not going to be complaining. This has a silicon carbide battery, 15% silicon on the anode side, good capacity without compromising on the size of the phone, and it does translate to real world usage as well. If you're gaming a lot, if you're on your phone a lot, if you're doom scrolling a lot, the battery will definitely come in handy. So while this doesn't support wireless charging, so you can't use the wireless charger that OnePlus made, they have made a specific magnetic cooler that can be attached to the device. But since this doesn't have any built-in magnets, you need to buy the magnetic case separately, which I don't really see the point of that unless you're going to be gaming endlessly. And you can actually buy coolers from places like Amazon that come with magnetic rings, and those will allow you to sort of attach the cooler onto this without needing to get into OnePlus's domain for that. So if you're going to be sort of gaming for a long time, we have one which we showed off on our recent video. We'll have that linked in the description below. You can go check it out as well. For the price starting 35,000 rupees, I would definitely recommend that you go for the one with 12 gigabytes of RAM if you can afford to add that extra money, so that you just get a better performance overall for a longer duration of time. There are some things like the cleanup tool that allows you to open up the RAM, but overall, I feel that one big mistake OnePlus has made is that it is locked in only at 256 gigabyte, which in 2026 doesn't seem like a lot of storage. And the fact that you don't have a micro SD card means that you are limited to 256, and if you run out, you run out. There isn't really an option unless you start using cloud services or whatever, which most people don't want to do. So I think that is going to be a big miss as far as this is concerned. The camera still over processes the images quite a lot, but the images did come out okay. Video quality is also good. The front camera again does not support 60 FPS, which is problematic. Even if they would have given 60 FPS on 1080, that would have at least allowed you to match the frame rates, if nothing else. Again, a big miss as far as the software is concerned. You can probably work around that with using some third-party apps, but natively it doesn't work. The camera also allows for bypass charging. That is good. Gaming allows for bypass charging. That is great. You have lots of customizations, not only for the UI, but for performance and all of those things as well. So overall, it's a really good package. The biggest advantage of this phone overall at the end of it is the 9000 milliamp hour battery. You get about 8700 of usable capacity from the battery. It's a single cell battery. It's a silicon carbide battery. So new battery tech, we've seen it over the past year or so, and it has done wonderfully. The fact that this phone doesn't add a lot of bulk with almost a massive double of what you typically get a battery, you're getting pretty good battery performance for a couple of days from this device. So overall, pretty impressive, especially if you are not wanting to worry about charging and making sure that you have enough battery in your phone. This is definitely going to be advantageous for that. We'll have links to the device in the description below. You can go check it out. The phone goes on sale tomorrow from the day of this video going live. So if you're interested, you can go buy it, pick it up. You have some instant 3000 rupee bank discounts as well. You can go check that out as well. And again, I recommend the 12 gigabyte variant instead of just the 8 gigabyte. If you like this video, smash like, hit subscribe, and stay tuned for our upcoming content. This has been Bharat. You've been watching iGyaan. I'll see you in the next one.